forgot the soldiers. In my back, I scrubbed myself clean. My appetite returned. My body filled out. My cheeks turned soft and ruddy. I let my hair grow long and sleek. I put on clothes the scent of persimmons. Only I know they shroud that abscess in my heart, my well of shame. Here are two other very much shorter poems about comfort women. This first one was inspired by a drawing by a Filipino comfort woman, Maria Rosa Hansen, in her autobiography. It's entitled The Belt. Insert the tongue into the metal buckle and pull it through almost all the way, leaving a small loop, enough room to slip in a slender foot. Cinch the belt around the ankle. Then from the other end, from one of the belt holes enlarged from constant use, hang it onto a nail hammered in at an angle at eye level to the post beside the cot. This way the leg is kept raised, straight up, the knee unable to bend, and the woman on her back does not ride up, her sex open, always ready, all afternoon and throughout the night. I saw a photograph in the Nanjing Massacre Memorial last year. It was of a comfort woman named Pak Yong-sim, naked in a brothel in Nanjing. So I entitled this poem, Naked. Naked is all I wear, second nature now, stripped of shame, served raw like their fish, translucent, a sheen of gold, this lure of musk and surrender, my brazen veil to hide from sight, the daily panic. I have a last section in my manuscript that contains a number of other poems about other civilians and how they were able to deal with the Japanese occupation, all their many daily accommodations. The first poem I'm going to read is written from the point of view of a young daughter. It's entitled, Inside Her Wooden Chest. My mother tells me to be brave. She fears for me as a young girl. When she goes out, I must hide inside her wooden chest, the one she brought from her home when she was young, when she got married. It is a black lacquered box with simple lotus on the top, inlaid in mother of pearl. She takes out all the clothes and blankets, then spreads out one to line the inside for me. She gives me a knife and shows me how, from the inside, to slip it through the crack between the top and bottom of the chest until I can feel the latch and push it open. We practice this several times so that I know I can get out by myself. But she says I should not worry because she will return soon. Before she leaves, she places inside a small ball of rice, a jar of tea, and another jar for me to urinate into. She also makes sure I see that she has put the lock in the bottom of the chest so that I do not feel trapped. I climb in and she closes the lid, folding the latch over its pin. It is dark and quiet, though I can peek through the crack and watch as the shadows deepen into twilight and into night. I quickly learn that I can sit up and extend my legs completely if I push my feet against the far upper corner. Sometimes I turn over and crouch on my knees. To while away the time, I add and subtract my numbers. I think about the weaving I was working on. I finish off the rice and wait for my mother for a long time. I fall asleep, curled up on my side. I dream about the crickets my father kept inside a small gourd cage he often carried in the palm of his hand. I used to help him scrape the bottom clean and replace it with new loam and lime. It had an ivory top carved through with 5 round holes to allow for air. I remember they sang so sweetly. When the Japanese occupied the city, a special refugee zone called the Nanjing Safety Zone was established, and it refers to an area where the Chinese civilians were able to go and were hopefully protected by from the Japanese invaders. It was not always perfect, but it was a place to go. It immediately got very overcrowded, and I take the point of view in this next poem of a mother who is late in discovering about the safety zone and has to make some hard decisions about her young son. The Nanking Safety Zone. tears, darting, filled with crazed hope, her voice so choked past sobbing, past exhaustion and despair, that she can barely muster a whisper, her plea hoarse and deliberate as she shoves through the ornate gate, through a narrow opening of cast iron, the bundle of her young son, just old enough to walk, but not yet weaned, wrapped slightly in a large padded jacket, a long scarf, and woolen cap, squeezing him through the grating into the surprised arms of strangers those already crowded around the camps inside, fortunate enough to have arrived earlier. Inside the sanctuary walls, these walls shielding them from plunder and rape, the slaughter outside, even of infants bayoneted or their heads dashed to the ground in front of the parents. An imaginable horror to this mother now desperate to complete her last act and race away from the wall, vowing never to look back, as if it would be bad luck, her will so strongly focused, even against her own maternal instincts, that she could at all costs care for him forever. But now she knows that this can never be so. And so for this one final chance, she takes control of her son's life by giving him up, his survival with better odds than her own, a lone woman on the street, now unburdened and resigned, stealing away through the rubble of her wounded city before the night that will soon come. I have a pair of poems that were inspired by my reading of diary entries by John Rabe, a German businessman who was in Nanjing at the time. This one is called A Pot of Rice Gruel. They marched the father away by the collar to wash their uniforms the whole day, haul tubs of hot soapy water, leaning over a washboard, scrubbing shirts, wringing out puttees to dry. He knew he should be grateful. Others he had heard had never returned, and he brought back a small sack of coarse rice. So in the setting sun, his family of 6 all squatted around the fire next to their tent, waiting for the rice gruel to boil down. A passing soldier approached, pushing aside the wife. He unbuttoned his trousers, letting go a stream of piss into the cast iron. The demon said nothing, as if just concentrating his aim, a glint in the dying light. Neither did the family, even the children, their faces flickering against the night, just staring wide-eyed, some mouths agape, as if no one could breathe the moment before tears would well up. The scavenger. Squat, short-haired cur, fur a smudge of dirty white, a stub of tail erect, snubbed snout picking over the arm, rooting out the flesh, gnawing bone. She senses my approach and turns about to face me, head cocked to one side, ears pricked, eyes alert, wary, careful to stand her ground between me and the slain soldier. Safeguarding her meal, she must be as famished as we are, but I am revulsed and chase her down the lane past the rubble and burnt-out houses until I can grab hold of her leg. She claws the air and snaps at me, so I fling her against the brick wall, stunning her long enough to truss her up, carry her to the butcher where I sell her. I take the cash though. She has human flesh now in her blood, so I turn down the butcher's offer of a fresh haunch as part of the spoils. Near the end of my manuscript, I have several poems just thinking about death, and so I'm going to read a couple of them. In the coffin. Blood turns to sludge, rusting veins. Lungs collapse, the chest sinks.